Welcome to SewVeryEasy. My name is Laura, and T-shirt quilts cannot be beat. It's so nice having our favorite T-shirts with us always. There are many different patterns and different ways that we can make T-shirt quilts, but I did find a kit that gives us everything that we are going to need to make that T-shirt. Well, we are going to need the T-shirts and our sewing machine, but it doesn't matter what sewing skills we have, we are going to be able to do this. So let's grab our T-shirts and the sewing machine and get going. The kits come in a big bag like this, and they're from June Taylor. And the kit is designed to make this 44 by 58 quilt, and it can be reversible. So both sides are going to be able to be enjoyed. The kit really does come with everything that we're going to need. It does have a template ruler so that we do not need to buy any special rulers. So this is a guide that's going to help us cut the T-shirts to 11.5 inch, 12.5, 13.5, and 14.5 inches. And T-shirts do have a bit of a stretch to them, so they need to be stabilized so that they don't stretch out of shape. And if they're old, it also makes them hold up a lot better and stay nice in the quilt. So the kit does come with 24 pre-cut fusible pieces of interfacing. It also comes with a pressing cloth that we're going to be able to reuse many times, not just for this project. We do have 12 pre-cut pieces of batting, so we don't have to even worry about that. It comes with the binding already pre-done for us. And it comes with this special joining fabric. So it is this special binding that those quilted T-shirts are going to fit right inside. So it takes all of the guesswork out of it. So we don't even need additional fabric. This is going to put it all together. And it's sort of a quilt as you go, which makes it even easier. So the first thing we need to do is wash those T-shirts. Once they're all washed, we can give them a little bit of a press. Now some T-shirts have this sort of a plastic feeling picture on them, and the iron can melt them, and that can transfer onto the iron. And that's where this pressing sheet is going to come in handy. So we're going to be able to press this T-shirt using that pressing cloth. Just lay it on top and press. The wrinkles are out. I'm going to be able to use this template to mark some trimming lines. I do not want to use this collar, so I'm going to make sure the collar does not go inside any of my templates. But other than that, I can put this wherever I want. And the template does have a big X in the center, so you can center it right on those pictures. I will be doing a man's T-shirt quilt. So I know I have lots of room to work with, so I'm going to use the largest size, which is the 14.5 inch, which is that outside measurement. So I'm going to be able to just draw all the way around this template. Now, if we're going to do smaller ones, we can just go inside these lines. And you can use anything you want, because this is a cutting line, so it's not going to affect the sewing at all. Once those markings have been done, I can just cut it out. And all I need is a pair of scissors. And I'm only cutting that top layer. That one piece is done. Now I can turn it around and do the back if there's a picture that I want on the back. Or I could just use this back fabric as an extra piece for the quilt. What I'm going to need is 24 of these squares. 12 for the front and 12 for the back. When we finish cutting them out, we're going to turn those over and fuse on this stabilizer. And I like to do them all at once, so I'll get my T-shirts cut and then I'll bring them to the iron. To fuse the interfacing on, or the stabilizer, what we're looking for is that piece that has the bumpy on it, and the smooth side is the side that comes up. The bumpy side has that glue, so the glue is going to go on the back of that T-shirt. So just line up the edges. And once it's lined up, place that pressing cloth over top. With that pressing cloth over top, we can just spray it with a little bit of water. Put your iron on a steam setting somewhere between a wool and a silk. And we just want to press each section, 3 or 4 seconds. So just keep pressing until all of that cloth is dry. Then when I peel off that top fabric, that interfacing is glued on. Now there are some things that we can do with the front of the t-shirts. Of course, we can just do the plain cutouts of the t-shirts, but if we have some favorite parts, we can always change them up. For an example, I will be making 2 of these t-shirt quilts, and I wanted this in each of the quilt. I divided that block in half and just added it on. So one quilt will have one side, one quilt will have the other. This was a portion of a sleeve. Here's an example of a t-shirt where the marking was right up at the front. So I did need to add that collar. So I've just put the 2 pieces together. It's the same t-shirt, so the colors look the same. So any of the shirts you can do. We just need to have them all stabilized along the back. And if you don't have enough t-shirts, you can always use a dress shirt. Give them a good press, stabilize the back, and you're going to be able to use that the same as your t-shirts. When all of those t-shirts are done and stabilized, we're going to make miniature quilt sandwiches. So we do have that batting pre-cut for us. So we're going to put it in between these 2 layers. So all the wrong sides are going to be touching. And I like to use a spray based. So I'm going to start with the one t-shirt down. And as with all sprays, I do have a well ventilated area. And I'm just going to give a very light spray. Now there is a little bit of a trick on putting the batting on. We could just plop it down, but if we're off a little, we have to take it up and remove it. So take that batting and just roll it up. I can now line up that top. And if the top is lined up, I know the rest will just line up and follow along. And if you happen to be off, it's really easy to peel off and reline it up. We don't have to worry about that little extra hanging out. It's going to all work out. We just want to make sure that this is nice and flat. Once I've done the one side, I'll just give a quick baste. And I'm going to make sure that both the t-shirts are facing in the right direction. Line it up and unroll. And just smooth that out. We now have that quilt sandwich ready to go to the machine. And you can quilt them really any way you want. The pattern does have these rows, and I really like the look of it, so I'm going to do that. I will have some rows going in this direction and some going in the other direction. If you don't like the straight lines, you could just do some free motion quilting. Once these are all quilted, we're going to be able to put them together. We're going to have 4 rows, and each row will have 3 quilt blocks. But we need to attach these quilt blocks with the Sash-in-a-Dash. So what's really neat about this is each of the quilt pieces are going to fit inside. So out of this entire roll, we need to cut 8 strips at 16 inches and 3 strips at 48 inches. So those 16 inches are going to go in between, and the long ones will be the rows. We don't even need to trim those blocks down. We just lift up one piece and have that come right up against that edge. The next piece will go in that next opening. And we get to stitch this down, but it'll be easier if we do one side at a time. So we're just going to slide this piece in, pin through all of those layers, and put on matching thread. And if you have a walking foot, you can use that. If not, that's fine. We just need to stitch right along this edge. all of this raw edge is all going to be encased. And this is a full inch. These little strips are cut on the bias. So if you find your machine is gathering them and you don't have a walking foot, you can glue baste them before you pin them. And children's school glue will work just fine, and we won't need a lot of it. This is water soluble, so it will come off in the first wash. Just run a line right along the edge, and you can do two. Place that first piece on and do that next strip. Tuck that in. And now dry that glue with an iron. Do the one side, turn it over, and press the second. That will definitely help that fabric from not gathering up as you're stitching. If it's a small piece like this, you probably will not need a pin, but as you start adding your pieces, the weight will pull the glue apart. So you can put a couple of pins in just to secure it. Another thing you can do is make your stitches a little bit bigger. So the machine, instead of being at a 2.5, could be at a 3. Once that one edge has been stitched on, we can slide in the other. Make sure that those edges are lined up, pin, and stitch. We now have the first row together. And that special folded fabric means it's quilted and finished on both sides. No additional fabric needed. And we can trim off this little extra. And now we're going to be able to put the next row together. Another long piece of sashing. Just have that go right between those layers. Pin and stitch that first row down. We can now add the second row. What we're looking to do is line up this row with the next row. We can always just lay a ruler down just to make sure those edges semi match up. If they're off a little bit, no one is going to be the wiser. Now we can pin this row together, and we're going to continue this. So 3 are going to go together with that center sashing, and we need to do 4 of these rows and join them together with that nice big sashing. And when all 4 rows are done, we're going to be able to do the very last thing and add the binding on. And the binding is all pre-cut, pressed, and ready to go on. Just slide this up to the fabric. It's the same concept. We're sandwiching those 2 pieces together. We just want to push that right to the edge and start stitching along that edge. So we're stitching along that edge, and when we get to the corner, we're just going to stitch up a little bit. We do not need to go right to that edge, just up about halfway. Now when we open up this, pull this around so that the edge of the quilt meets the middle of this binding, we end up with this little triangle in the corner. So just give a little rub with your finger. So now when this comes over, we have that perfect mitered corner. And the same for the back. Just rub a little bit with your hand to make a press and push it over. And there is that nice mitered corner. And when we come to joining that end, because this has been cut on the bias, it's not going to fray. So we can just match up those edges and stitch right along that edge. You can do a little back stitch, and if you'd like, you can stitch down right where that seam would be. But I definitely would use matching thread. The directions does give us a second way of doing those corners, so we have a choice of 2 different corners. So the T-shirt quilts are a lot of fun to make. We have the template, we have everything we need except the T-shirts. They can be made for just having fun for yourself, or you can get together with a couple of friends and make your quilts. Like Lizanne and my friend Kathy, we got together to make these quilts. So we have the black version. So we have that beautiful black binding, and we have a red version. And then if you really like, there is a blue version. So no matter how you put them together, they're a lot of fun, and they're reversible. So you can either have T-shirts on each side, have some fabric on one side, have memorabilia, anything you want, will go on these t-shirts. And having those kits and the supplies already cut for us definitely takes all of the guesswork out of it. And they're a lot of fun to get together to do. Thank you for joining us today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.
Are we done, Laura?
We're done. We can have wine now.
It's wine time. Bye.
So t-shirt